So here's a story that's not getting a lot of attention. Energy Transfer Partners, the company behind the Dakota Access Pipeline and the violent and invasive surveillance practices used on the water protectors protesting that pipeline, they're at it again. By the way, DAPL has already spilled multiple times since it became operational, just like the water protectors were saying. So Energy Transfer Partners has the highest spill record in the country. The Bayou Bridge LLC company, a subsidiary of Energy Transfer Partners, is building a 162-mile crude oil pipeline across most of the state of Louisiana and around 700 bodies of water, including the delicate ecosystem of the Atchafalaya Basin. Sorry if I butchered that. The pipeline is supposed to deliver crude oil from Phillips 66 and Sunoco Logistics in Texas to Lake Charles, Louisiana. Since it has first been proposed, there have been protests sprouting up, intensifying at the end of 2017 and into this year. Specifically, protesters, water protectors, are demanding that Louisiana Governor John Bel Edwards, a Democrat, by the way, provide an environmental impact statement for the pipeline. One activist actually bought some of the land that the pipeline is traveling over in an interesting move. Last week, 3 protesters were arrested after trying to block the construction of the pipeline. The people of Louisiana are angry, and for good reason. Louisiana has one of the highest concentration of oil facilities in America, and the health of their residents shows it. Once a bucolic village of pasture lands and sugarcane fields on the banks of the Mississippi, St. James, Louisiana is now a densely packed industrial zone in the heart of Louisiana's petrochemical corridor, commonly referred to as Cancer Alley. Louisiana has developed an outsized role in the country's energy and petrochemical industry, thanks in part to generous tax breaks that are largely borne at the local level. The state's Industrial Tax Exemption Program, ITEP, which dates back to the 1930s, offers a 10-year local property tax exemption for industrial developers. Between 2008 and 2015, the state estimates it lost nearly $10 billion in revenue under the ITEP. It expects to forego an additional $7 billion from 2016 to 2020. So they're losing revenue by giving these petrochemical and oil companies tax breaks, which is really because, I think, Big Oil donates a lot to Louisiana politicians. For the Democratic governor, John Bel Edwards, oil and gas is his 7th highest industry donor, and energy and natural resources is his 8th highest sector donor. That money must be worth it, Governor, since a section of your population lives in an area so polluted that they call it Cancer Alley, colloquially. Fortunately, U.S. District Judge Shelley Dick ordered a temporary injunction against the construction of the pipeline at the end of February. However, an appeal of her ruling will be heard by a 3-judge panel of the U.S. 5th Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans on Tuesday. But residents are fighting back anyway, outside of the courts, regardless of what they do. The Louisiana Bucket Brigade, an environmental nonprofit, submitted public records in order to prove that the Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, GOSEP, is targeting them, and here's what they found. The documents show the Louisiana Governor's Office of Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness regularly drafted intelligence memos on anti-pipeline activists, including a gathering of indigenous-led water protectors who set up a protest encampment along the pipeline's route. Other newly revealed documents show close coordination between Louisiana regulators and the company building the pipeline, Energy Transfer Partners. Does that sound familiar? It should. In some cases, state regulators use language drafted by the pipeline company in its public documents. Much like DAPL, this is a state that is working with a private company in order to suppress and surveil protests about this extremely financially important to them pipeline that will destroy their residents' livelihoods and health. And the state isn't even trying to deny it because, hey, North Dakota didn't face any consequences, so why should we? GOSEP doesn't deny keeping tabs on the group. They say that's standard protocol. GOSEP routinely shares information involving any events within the state that may require the use of additional local, state, or federal resources. This activity can include events such as holiday celebrations, parades, large sporting events, and protests. This information flow helps everyone maintain situational awareness in order to protect any security, traffic, law enforcement, or any other assets potentially needed for the event, GOSEP Communications Director Mike Steele said in a statement. So we will see what happens on Tuesday, but it blows my mind that Energy Transfer Partners is so emboldened by their victory in Standing Rock. It's really gross to me. They're using the exact same tactics pretty much, and allegedly even trying to use the same surveillance company. Tiger Swan, the private mercenary company usually used overseas in wars, is currently appealing a Louisiana State Regulatory Board decision which denied them a permit to operate. Unfortunately, the national spotlight hasn't caught up to these protests yet in Louisiana. Just because Trump stamped out Obama's DAPL decision to halt the pipeline doesn't mean that we can't have victory here in Louisiana. We have to keep trying, and we will keep monitoring this story here at TYT Politics.